toasting, joking too. Sipping and roasting is what we do. Light 'em up, drink 'em down. Whiskey and cigars all around. Cheers, y'all.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fine radio program, podcast, and video extravaganza known internationally as the world-famous Smokin' and Toastin'. World-famous now and about to become even more world-famous as we're
more worldly?
getting things... Yeah, more worldly. My mom will be so disappointed. We're about to make our broadcast radio debut. That's going to be coming up. We're settling on the launch date for that, but soon.
I was told never to settle.
Yeah, well, and that's probably
and look
good
at me now.
That's probably good advice. But in any case, once that's established, we'll begin popping up on a handful of radio stations around the country, and hopefully that will grow into more, and we'll be their featured Saturday afternoon programming. So that's,
you said we had 2 to 4 times.
2 to 4 is what it's. And I don't know yet. Is that 2 to 4 Eastern, 2 to 4 Central, or 2 to 4 wherever you are? I don't know. I don't know how they do that yet, but we'll figure it out. In any case, once that happens, the show will shift to being available on Saturdays. So it'll be available starting on the weekends, whereas now it's available on Thursdays, even if we record in advance, which we do a lot. But we'll do the show during the week, and it'll be made available to you on Saturdays, kind of like, an episode of The Last of Us, not available until Sunday at 8 p.m. and at 7:30, I'm like, come on, But sorry, I'm a little obsessed with that show. It's really amazing.
Kind of how we used to watch TV.
It really is.
You have to wait for it to show up on TV
they've gone back to must-see TV. But they're just doing it in a different way now, That show, man. No kidding. I will plan Sunday evening around getting to watch that. And you haven't done that for a long time until
I still wait till the next day.
I actually just wait until the whole season's out.
And there's some logic to that. Like I got really pissed off at some of the stuff that AMC Network was doing, and so I said, that's it. I'm not finishing Better Call Saul until it comes out on Netflix. But boy, am I excited when the last season comes out on Netflix.
Right. June this year. Super duper excited.
I'll be binging that bad boy in one night, most likely. So anyway, we're going to talk about a little bit about TV, but we're also going to talk a lot about our favorite subjects: craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. That's what the program is about.
Don't forget Nicolas Cage. He pops up
and
a lot,
Nicolas
too, in our
Cage.
conversations.
And I don't know why, but it happens. Welcome to show number 3.
He makes 300 movies a year, and he can't avoid it.
Yeah. You're absolutely right about that. And if you make 300 a year, 2 or 3 of them are going to be pretty good.
Some are going to hit.
The only person that never really worked for was Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Those got progressively worse.
Yes, they did.
Worse.
They
and they weren't that great to begin with.
Exactly.
Right.
That's the point. It's hard to find gems there. But I digress. It's show number 317, and I'm gonna give the whole show away right now. Spoiler alert! It's bourbon time with Old Humble Distilling. They've got a brand new bourbon, and we're going to be sampling it for the first time.
I like
Well,
bourbon.
maybe not the first time for you, Joe Breda.
I've had it a couple times, yeah.
Joe is our guest from Old Humble Distilling,
Cheers.
One of our favorite distilleries.
He's a veteran guest now.
And right up the street. On Saturday Night Live, they do that thing where, like, if you've hosted it for, like, 5 times, I think it was Steve Martin that came up with this. You remember the 5 Timers Club?
You get the robe, right?
Yeah. And so you're what? This is 3 times, 4 times?
I think this is number 4.
Okay, so by the time we have Joe back, we're gonna have to have some sort of a smoking and toasting robe to give him.
Special smoking jacket.
Right now, all you get's the bottle opener, but the robe will be for the 5 Timers Club. So, no, that means we got to give one to Chris Hart and Alan Denning. Oh man, those guys have been freeloading off of us for a long time. So, no, we love those guys. So anyway, today's show we will talk bourbon and we'll drink bourbon from Old Humble Distilling. So we're looking forward to that. We also will be talking about an interesting thing is beginning to happen, and that is that so many of my favorite things are being sold to enormous companies. And sometimes,
no, not more.
Sometimes that could be good. Sometimes it could be bad. First, AB came in and bought up all these craft breweries around. They bought Karbach here in Houston. They bought Wicked Weed. They bought Goose Island. They bought a number of different
And now
craft
they're laying
breweries.
people off.
And we'll talk about that, too. And the other thing, though, is that you may remember when Stone, one of our favorite breweries in the world, sold. And, listen, I am a capitalist at heart, so I recognize that this is something. I have no problem from a business standpoint with an entrepreneur building up a great small company and then selling it at a profit to a big company. I think that's part of how this country works. It's just that in our particular industry, I'm sometimes sad to see it. I've got my fingers crossed that 2 years from now, when I open a can or a bottle of one of Stone's beers, that it's still going to be as good as it was. I don't think with AB, they've always kept the beers as good as they were. Goose Island IPA used to be a wonderful IPA, and now it's marginal at best. There's also we've talked about Karbach. They took away your favorite beer in their whole line, the Sympathy for the Lager.
Immediately. They bought Karbach and immediately were like, nah, we don't need that lager.
Yeah,
we got some of those.
And we've talked about how there's not as much grapefruit in the Bright and Shiny, and so they don't always bring the best when they take over a company. And if they're laying people off, you can bet that's not going to improve quality. I'm not saying it will automatically make it worse, but it's not going to improve quality.
If they've already cut enough corners on the product that they need to start cutting people to still make money, to still make their what's their percentage of the industry is like some ungodly amount.
And then the other thing that I don't know how I feel about, but we'll talk about it, is that one of my favorites in the cigar world has been sold to a large company. It is Alec Bradley. They've been sold to Scandinavian Tobacco.
Really now?
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know. This doesn't necessarily mean the quality of what they do will suffer. In fact, you could argue Dogfish Head has gotten even better since it's been bought by Boston Beer Company, Samuel Adams.
But I think Boston Beer Company, Samuel Adams, has a different design.
I think they look at things differently.
Yeah, they're a little bit different corporate philosophy than AB.
I've had a chance to interview and just have a chat with Jim Cook, the guy that did the Sam Adams commercials for years.
Cool.
And he's like the founder, I think, of that company. He's still involved with them. And
he's not a golden-throated pitch guy.
No, he's not. But he is passionate about beer. I mean, that is that is so his thing. You probably couldn't talk to him about anything else for longer than 15 minutes. He'd steer the conversation back to beer.
I remember in the late 80s and early 90s, the commercials that he used to put on were informative, and you could just tell that this guy loved beer.
I remember
and spoke directly to people.
They spill more beer than we make in a year.
Yeah. Exactly. That's right. I remember that.
I forgot about that one. Yeah.
And then there was the one where he talked about the head, the foam on the glass, and how if it's like it's supposed to be, that because he was talking about people try to pour their beer so that's not there. That's not what you want. You want a layer of foam on the top. He said it should be sturdy enough that you could float the bottle cap on it like a sneaky little boat or something like this, or something like a tiny little boat, whatever it was. But he was colorful. He was interesting, and he was. It was a lot of fun to be around. But mostly, he was so passionate about beer. So maybe that's had something to do with the culture inside Boston Beer and the fact that they've made Dogfish Head maybe even more experimental.
And I haven't had Dogfish Head in a little while, so it might be worth it to pick up a couple and just see where they're at.
I just had a 120-minute IPA last week.
Those, I have a couple in my fridge.
Well, it has been Imperial February.
Yeah.
So I've been celebrating by doing all of these cool Imperial IPAs that I could find, and I'm telling you, that's one of the best that there is. I mean,
see, I think like since it's been enough time since they've been sold, I need to pick up 100 or not 120, but a 90-minute.
The 90 is the 90
because that's like one of the best IPAs.
It really is fantastic.
See, I came from an industry before doing the distillery that was a consolidation industry, the funeral and cemetery industry, big consolidation industry, small mom and pop shops that get bought by the largest.
And they don't let anybody know
too.
They're very sneaky about that.
And they try to keep the local. And there's a good way to do it and a bad way to do it, where you buy out the locals and you get rid of the local shops. You keep one name on for a consultation fee, whatever.
And you still call it Joe's Funeral Shop or something to make it seem local.
Yeah, but then all the operations of the 4 or 5 shops that go into a central place, and that's the difference between like AB and Boston Beer Company, where they take the operations, and I don't know if they do it for all of them, so don't take this as gospel, but they take some of the operations out of the local shop and move it to the major factory production, and they keep some of the labels, so they can make more of the stuff that is unique to them. So there's some good stuff and some bad stuff. They make more of the really good stuff and a lot more of the other stuff, but it becomes kind of genericized. Is that a word?
Yeah,
that's a word.
Genericized.
Right. Yeah. Write that into your dictionaries at home.
Yeah. If you type it in and say add spelling, it won't correct
exactly.
you on it.
It exists suddenly. But there's that kind of there's that kind of balance of keeping the local and doing what the local does well and more of it, and then getting the other stuff and kind of just increasing the distribution. But then there's the bad way to do it, where you hollow it out and bring everything into the factory, and it becomes just a name and a faceplate.
Add a little rice.
Well,
it becomes it kind of saps the vibrancy of the industry, and it's. I have strong opinions on it myself, and if any major consolidator wants to call me, my phone number is on our website.
That's the
and
thing,
I would
right?
absolutely love to have this conversation with you guys.
I can't promise you that if I still call them Clear Channel, iHeart Radio. If those guys came and offered us a whole bunch of money for smoking and toasting, much as I hate their whole business model, I can't tell you we would turn that down.
Yeah. I mean, that's difficult.
Yeah.
If somebody came and offered me a big dump truck full of money to sell the distillery, I'd consider it. I'd reluctantly probably do it if it was a big enough dump truck. But you know how much more bourbon I could make?
Yeah.
If I had just all the time on my hands and a dump truck full of money,
right?
I'd go open up another distillery and like that and run it from my boat.
And then was the birth of New Humble Distillery.
New Humble Distillery.
A whole
I like
new
it.
concept.
You may need to go and get that website name right now. Right now.
The New Obnoxious Distillery.
Well, we have been able to confirm. I love that. Obnoxious from the New Humble Distillery. I love it. We have been able to confirm layoffs from Carbach here in Houston, from Blue Point Brewing in New York, and that was confirmed by LinkedIn post from former workers. Craft Beer Daily is reporting there have been layoffs, and these are all AB owned. There have been layoffs at Lexington, Virginia-based Devil's Backbone and at Wicked Weed in Asheville, North Carolina. Brewbound has learned of employees at Chicago-based Goose Island and Miami-based Wynwood Brewing and Visa Sur also affected. It's kind of unclear how many, but Brewers Collective, which is what AB calls their craft arm, is about 20 breweries across the country that they managed to buy during their buying spree. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. But
what we like to refer to as the macro craft.
The macro craft, exactly right. It's that's how I wrote it in my notes. AB lays off macro craft employees.
Yeah. That also means there's a lot of good talent out there if people want to start new
there you go.
breweries.
Yeah. That's and who knows? Maybe we'll see a new little sprouting.
The blueprint's
arms and all
changing
kinds
a
of
little
cool
bit
stuff.
too, because I think the idea of the local brewery that just serves the local is just blossoming right now, and I'm sure instead of trying to have as big a distribution as you can, distributing locally and just being a destination for the neighborhood is becoming quite the thing.
Yeah, if you are in a large enough local market and you can produce to your local market and sell to your local market, you can do well. And you can do well enough that you can raise the profile of your operation to show up on the radar of the big guys.
Ian and I were over at Platypus Brewing yesterday, having a cigar and enjoying some food and some beers. They looked like they were doing pretty well on a Sunday afternoon. I was pretty impressed. And boy, those chicken wings were good. Holy
Man,
moly.
yeah, their food is fantastic.
It really is. And the beer, we were talking about it just before we went on the air. They had it's not available in stores, but they had a Kolsch on tap.
Outrageous.
That was so good.
So good.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. So, speaking of beers, we'll be trying some on this show in addition to the bourbon from Eureka Heights here in our own backyard. They have a golden ale, which I believe is new, called Mr. Bloom Tastic.
Oh, yeah.
And so we'll be trying that. You're nodding. You've had that before, haven't you? Yeah. So we'll be getting into Mr. Bloom-tastic here. Also from NOLA Brewing Company, which is one of my personal favorites. I love those guys. We'll be trying there because it is, we're still kind of hanging on with both hands to Imperial February. We'll try their Walk Down That Hill Imperial IPA. And then from Founders Brewing Company, we had such fun with the ice cream waffle stout that we had last week. It was sort of a breakfasty, dessertish. So we're kind of going back in that direction with Founders Brewing Company's French Toast Bastard. It's the bourbon barrel aged Scotch ale, which is supposed to have notes of French toast. So we'll look forward to that. We'll see if we
I'd like to tell you that I haven't tried that either.
Yeah, I wish you could. But hey, you can still.
If it's something from Founders, especially one of their bastards. I love the Dirty Bastard. I love Scotch ale anyway. But I've probably tried it.
I figured
I've probably gotten in there.
You can tell them whatever.
So we'll get to that. We'll get to Old Dumble's brand new bourbon, and we're very excited about trying that. We also will have drinking news on the show. Our drinking news teaser headline for today. I'm your mayor, and I approved this message.
Okay.
And we'll get to that a little bit later on in the show. Right now, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be doing our very first sampling of some of the bourbon from Old Dumble, and we'll find out if Ian's had an opportunity to smoke anything interesting this week. It's Smoking and Toasting. Our program's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We'll talk about all three when we come back. Welcome back. It is Smokin' and Toastin', or as they call us in Mexico, Smokin' y Toastin'. We're glad to be a part of your day today, and thank you for joining us.
You're a cunning linguist, sir.
Yes, I've had that said about me. As far as the show today goes, we've had Joe on several times, as we established earlier, but I was really excited that you were coming back because we've always had a good time with you. You've not only is your booze really, really good, but you're one of our. I would put you in the category of being one of our favorite guests.
Well, thank you. For a good time, call Old Dumble.
That's right. And I'm sorry to admit to you that puts you in a category with Chris Hart and Alan Denny, but somebody has to share. Right?
I've heard good things about those guys. I'd love to meet them both.
And
I think I've met Chris before.
Docs, we got to get Docs back on the show. I think he has something new coming. Fun. So we may get him back on the show here before too long. So we'll look forward to that. Ian, I know we had a crazy week. I know I got you to help me with some things I needed moved yesterday, and I know you smoked a cigar after that, but I wonder what have you had this week that you found
I actually smoked
really
a new cigar that you gave me, but I'm not talking about that one. It was also quite good, by the way.
Oh, good.
Good. But I stopped today and bought myself an A.J. Fernandez New World Dorado.
See, now I talked about this a while back, and you're going into some good territory here, my friend. I'm just.
I picked up the Robusto 5.5 by 52 size. The wrapper is Habano Sun Grown in Nicaragua. This is a Nicaraguan Puro, so everything from Nicaragua, and I think almost all from the same farm.
I think so. At least from no more than 2, I think, of his farms.
Right.
I think a little bit of the filler may have come from one of his other farms.
Right. So the appearance on this gorgeous golden brown wrapper, smooth and leathery to the touch, golden New World band and gold footer on it. Medium firmness overall. The pre-light sniff, I got barnyard, I got mocha, I got dark fruit. The pre-light draw, I used a punch, had a medium draw on it, sweet and tingly on the lips, creamy sweetness and dark fruit going on with the pre-light draw. The initial light. Was a Nicaraguan pepper blast.
Yes.
See, now I'm feeling the fact that we don't have a song for it.
See, just think if we had a song,
right? Okay,
it could come in right here. It'd be wonderful.
I may have to find a cigar and debut that at 333.
Wouldn't that be great?
That would be amazing.
By the way, and we haven't affirmed this yet, but we're going to be asking John Egan to come to the show and play the show opening theme live.
I could just give him a call.
Yes.
I don't know about y'all, but I can hear the theme song.
Already. Oh yeah.
It's already
for Nicaraguan pepper blast.
Yeah, it's just right there.
I love it.
It's good.
Nice.
I'm thinking of kind of a thrashy thing. You know,
it needs to be kind of heavy, right?
Yeah,
because it's a pepper blast.
Because it's pepper blast.
It kind of has to have kind of a Latin-y theme to it too.
Ooh, I like that.
Because it's Nicaraguan.
I like that.
You know,
there's
a heavy Latin.
Maybe a flamenco guitar, and then
have you ever heard the band Puya?
Yes.
Yeah. They kind of blend that metal and
Have you ever heard the band Who? H-U? Not the Who, but H-U.
I've heard of. I don't
Yeah,
know
you got to check them out on YouTube.
Pretty awesome.
It's
noted.
It's a little mind blowing.
They from New Jersey?
I know they're from like Russia or someplace. They're
Okay, I wasn't expecting that.
yeah, no. I think they may be like from Poland or Ukraine or something. They're somewhere in the Baltic states. But anyway, I digress. How was that cigar?
So after the Nicaraguan pepper blast, in which I got the notes of pepper backed by peppery pepper, stuffed with pepper, and topped with pepper and campfire.
That's a real Nicaraguan pepper
Yeah, it
blast.
sounds like pepper.
Yeah, it was peppery. If you guys didn't get that from it, there were notes of pepper.
Yes.
The first third of this, I got sea salt and cayenne with leather and oak, slight lime and mineral at the back of the palate. Sumptuous silky smoke makes for great smoke rings. Retrohale is crushed red pepper and oak with a kiss of raisin, solid ash, good burn. You'll see that in this picture right here. Second third of this, bit of pretzel bread appears and makes residence along with the cayenne and dark fruit notes. Mocha weaves throughout, sometimes more pronounced, sometimes less. Sea salt and sweetness is reminiscent of salted caramel. Earthy and leathery notes remain constant, and the oaky flavors move closer to cedar with a citrus twang. A slightly bitter mineral aftertaste lingers after each puff, but in a good way. Retrohale is red pepper and cedar with a touch of fruit. Solid ash, perfect burn. The last third of the cigar, earth takes over some of the spicy pepper and brings more sweet, almost nutty notes to the forefront. Pretzel shifts to a savory bread flavor. Salted caramel and mocha remain prevalent, followed by lime and mineral aftertaste. Retrohale is spicy earth and sweet cedar with a distinctive fruity note. Solid ash, perfect burn. What a great cigar.
Yeah.
$11 for this cigar.
Wow, for $11?
For $11.
That's a whole lot going on for 11.
5.5. This is definitely punching a little above its weight class. And the complexity and the ride through the complexity was amazing.
Yeah.
I will tell you, if you're having a drink with this, it needs to be something pretty stout. This is, I think it's medium, but it's definitely on the bigger medium side.
Yeah.
And it's so complex.
Yes.
So many things going on that it's worth sitting down and paying attention to this one.
You and I agreed. I just went back and looked at my notes from when I talked about this cigar a month or two ago in the show. You and I had a very similar experience with one exception.
What's that?
I point out in mine, and it just goes to show you how different people can
get
perceive
different
things
things,
differently, right? But I actually went to links in mine to point out that I was expecting but did not get a Nicaraguan pepper blast.
Oh, interesting.
That there was pepper, I say in my notes. There was definitely pepper, but it wasn't what I could, because I was expecting, boom. Because the regular New World line, I mean, that's all NPB when you take those first few puffs, right? But you got one in a big way, so it's just
this was all pepper blast at the very beginning of this, and it was really nice. I really enjoyed this. I'll be picking up more of these.
It's well worth it. I think that AJ believes that's his crowning achievement so far.
It's a pretty beastly cigar. I really enjoyed it.
And he's done a lot of great ones. So I did something this week that I tried for the first time, and it's something been out a little while, but not long.
I thought you did that in college.
I did, yeah. Well, yeah, but I was broken. I needed the money, so I, colleges. I tried one I hadn't had before. It's the Rocky Patel Disciple. I smoked the Toro. Yeah. So first thing to point out about the Disciple is the packaging is beautiful, and here's where I feel kind of like
it is gorgeous.
Yeah, because I know Adam will have a picture of it kind of supered up on the screen if you're watching the video, kind of like when you're watching John Oliver and he does something and there's a picture of Joe Biden with a party hat on or something. It's something that's kind of how it feels watching these back and seeing Adam putting these pictures up. But anyway, there is the gorgeous packaging of the Rocky Patel Disciple, and it made me think. Rocky Patel's gone from a very basic style of packaging early on in the line to some of the most elaborate and beautiful that exist today in the cigar industry.
Very tasty looking, not ostentatious.
No, they're not over the top. No,
not clownish.
You might remember the original release of the Edge. I don't think had a band at all.
Right, and originally no band whatsoever.
And then they started putting a band on the foot.
Just the foot.
And now if you buy an Edge, that band has moved up to the kind of normal band slot. But again, and even the the vintage line, tasteful but very simple, very basic kind of bands. But as the company has grown, so has the scope of the packaging. The Rocky Patel Disciple, honestly, is one of the most sleek and gorgeous band designs that I've ever seen on a cigar. Long dark sleeve at the foot of the cigar, shiny orange footer band, and then a beautifully embossed goldish orange band near the head. It's rolled with a Mexican San Andres wrapper, and it uses exclusively Nicaraguan tobacco for the binder and filler. It almost seemed a shame to take the sleeve off because it was so pretty. But I wouldn't have been, it would have been more of a shame not to have smoked it. So off it went. The cigar itself was also quite gorgeous. Dark brown, relatively smooth, just a few veins and nicely packed. I used a punch and I checked the cold draw, earth, coffee, and chocolate on the cold draw. I was
so I'm looking at my notes on this cigar, and barnyard, earth, coffee, and chocolate.
Okay, so the only thing I didn't get was a barnyard. Yep. I was really excited about this cigar, so I toasted it with the lighter and took the first puff. And as has been the case with a number of Nicaraguan cigars that I've smoked recently, I did not get a Nicaraguan pepper blast. Did you get one?
I did not. Not on this.
Okay.
I'll let you read yours.
There was a hint of pepper, but the more dominant notes were similar to what I got on the pre-light: earth, chocolate, coffee, and a bit of a hint of dried fruit is what I got.
Nice.
Okay. Second, third gave me the impression that the chocolate and coffee notes had sort of merged into more of a mocha vibe. That's a subtle difference, but I did notice it. Either that or I'm completely out of my mind. Earth and dried fruit remained to a lesser extent, and a hint of cedar and pepper on the retrohale. I got a bit of oakiness in the final third, which replaced the cedar, but the mocha note was still the most prominent. The Disciple started at just under medium-bodied and finished at probably medium to full. It definitely increased as it smoked, the strength and body of the cigar. Construction was quite good. Burn line was a little jagged at times, but overall behaved nicely. I did touch it up once as it burned near one of the veins, but there was no penalty whatsoever, no detectable harshness. The first ash held on for about 1.5 inches. The longer I smoke cigars, the more I appreciate complexity more than any other characteristic of whatever it is I'm smoking. Although the flavors of the Disciple didn't change a great deal as it smoked, the complexity of the way that they blended was really my favorite thing about this cigar. Rocky's DBS line, which was released at the same time as the Disciple, got a lot of attention, and the Disciple, I think, flew under the radar a little more. Let's do at least a little something here to correct that now. Disciple is totally worth your time and a bit of your smoking budget. It's a beautiful, nicely complex cigar that I totally enjoyed. At $12 to $13 a stick, it's not cheap. But given cigar prices these days, you can certainly find a whole bunch of things that are priced higher. The Disciple at 12 to 13 delivers. I would recommend it for experienced smokers, and maybe for those that like milder-bodied smokes, but they're looking for, a step in that direction, and it won't overpower you. I'd say you guys try it as well. Price to quality for me, for the Rocky Patel Disciple Toro, a very solid 5.5.
Exactly what I gave it.
Oh my gosh, that's
Talking
great.
points.
I don't remember.
Mocha,
So.
dark fruit, the sweetened coffee, like all these things. Yeah, we got a lot of the same things out of
Well,
that.
that's kind of cool. That lets me know that I'm not completely out of my mind.
See, I love coming here and listening to y'all give your tasting notes on the cigars because, I smoke a cigar once a month, once every couple of months, and I get the different flavors, but I don't pay close enough attention. And it strikes me how remarkably different the cigar you smoked with the peppery blast versus the more mellow, earthy, grainy.
Even though both
cigar.
of them were Nicaraguan tobacco.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, I'm sitting here thinking, yours would go really good with a full-bodied, robust rye or a single malt Scotch or maybe a rice whiskey, and yours would be more of a mellowed, longer-aged rye or a bourbon that has that complexity of flavors in it.
You're getting
and I'm sitting here thinking, these cigars. What kind of whiskey would I pair with the whiskey and cigar pairings? Ooh, there's like a pair. You don't just drink the whiskey and smoke the cigar. You do a thing with it.
Here's what we need to do, Ian. I think we need to get we need to do an annual show that is all about pairings, and we need to have Joe on. We need to have some maybe some other people who are really sharp with whiskey, and have some cigar guys on to talk about what they. Starting with the cigar, what do they pair? And I think it would be interesting to do a whole show that's just about pairings.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we'd be drinking and smoking,
whiskey.
so how great it would it be? You
Yeah,
know?
and
We put
cheese
on
and
an
whiskey, or
event that was all
sausages and
about
whiskey,
that.
all
Yeah,
kinds of
yes,
stuff.
we did. The whiskey sniff.
The whiskey sniff, you
Yeah.
know, and this is an idea that I developed with my brother, where I would sit and I would light a cigar and get about just past the first bit of it, where you got it really in your palate, and then I would go inside and just look at my whiskey collection. I would just grab a bottle and take a sniff and keep doing that until I found the one. Like, you know it when you smell it. It's interesting how your nose just, like, once you have that flavor in your palate, you know your nose knows it.
And that is what the whiskey sniff is supposed to be about. And sometimes the logistics of it made it a little less of that than we wanted. But the idea would be you'd get there, you'd turn in your ticket, you'd get your little bag of cigars, you'd light one up, and then you'd go around the area where all of the distillers
The whiskeys
and
were
different
available, yeah.
people had their stuff available, and you'd sniff and choose what you wanted to take. We're still working to kind of like improve that idea just a little bit and bring about, the pandemic brought about the pause of the whiskey sniff, but we would love to bring it back.
Yep.
So, in fact, I've been talking a little bit with our friends that have been mentioned several times on the show, Chris Hart and
Chris
Alan
and
Denning,
Alan, yeah.
about doing something together with them for the whiskey sniff. So we'll see if we can bring that back. We'd love to take it to other cities also, besides just having it in Houston. So, all right, we got a bottle of bourbon that is just sitting there calling my name, and I haven't tasted it before, but I distinctly heard it. While I was trying to give my cigar review, I distinctly heard it calling my name.
and even if you have had it before, you haven't had this before.
Okay.
It is entirely different than what it was the first time we released it.
Okay, well, I'm super excited. Let's dig in and try some of this. Now, so this is a re-release then of the Boomtown Bourbon. Is that right?
Yes.
Tell he's been on the show before. He knows how important that moment is.
Yeah.
The sound effect
So
moment.
so this is our Boomtown Bourbon, the flagship bourbon of the Old Humble Distilling Company.
Right.
It is 72% corn, malted barley and rye make up the balance of the grain bill. We age it 6 to 9 months in 5-gallon casks, which gives it the equivalent of 5 to 7 years in a barrel.
Okay. And at some point, you decided you wanted to kind of like reboot this, correct?
Right. So this is our fourth batch of our Boomtown Bourbon. It was made fourth batch of Boomtown Bourbon. The first 2 batches were made up in Conroe. The third batch was made in our old location in Humble, and all 3 of those batches used municipal water. This is the first batch that we've used that use our water that we use collected from rainwater at our new facility. So the water is literally delivered by God above, straight to us, where we turn it into whiskey. So
you're doing God's work, is basically what you're saying.
Absolutely,
Okay,
doing God's
gotcha.
work. It's the Spirit shall be in you.
I
like that idea.
The thing was, before the last time you came out, me and my wife went up to Humble area. We were like, you know what? Let's just go up there. Old Humble Distillery is up there. Ingenious is up there. There's a few other things. There's apparently a skating rink that we stopped and skated at.
There's an old skating rink.
Why not?
Yeah. I spent many a day in
Because
the
skating.
1980s in that
we
skating
pulled
rink.
up to where at that time we pulled up to where it said that your distillery was, and it wasn't there.
Right.
So I called the number, and I got you.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but, and we chatted for a minute, like, oh, it's not there anymore. I moved it down the road, but it's not open yet. And I was like, oh, okay. And then my wife looked across the street and went, well, there's a skating rink right there, so let's go skate. I was like, okay. So when we got done skating, we were thinking, okay, let's go somewhere and have a drink. And then you called us back. He said, hey, are you still in the area? I said, yes. He goes, I'm going to bring my sister to show her the new distillery. Do you want to meet me over there? I was like,
Nice.
Sure. So we got to meet you and your sister and hang out for a few minutes and check it out. But it wasn't even like you literally just tossed everything in there.
Right.
And just had the space so far. So that was pretty exciting to do.
Well, thanks. And we're still in the process of finishing out the build out and getting everything up to snuff and ready to change over and everything. But we're working on it. It's a long process.
Yeah.
And after the freeze, all the prices for contracting shot through the roof. So we're going to do the build out ourselves. Just everything is more. When you're opening a business and starting your own shop, everything's more expensive than you think it was going to be. It takes longer than you think it's going to take. It's just you roll with the punches and you do what you need to do.
Ian, I did something that you usually do. usually I'm talking and you start the research early.
Yeah.
While you were talking about your story about meeting him out there at the distillery, I was doing a little research, and I'm already pretty excited about this bourbon.
I got a few words to toss out after my one sip.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say silky, like chocolate mousse, buttery,
Definitely
and a little cinnamon, and some mineral.
Those.
Love all those things.
Thank you.
Yeah, really good. So my question is, was this deliberate? In other words, the change from your from what your last bourbon was like, was it a decision to do something different, or is it how it came out when you changed water and other things for other reasons?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
In the new location, so the history of Humble is that it's an old oil town. Mm-hmm. Humble Oil became
represented
Exxon
by
eventually.
your logo. Yeah.
Over the years, it became Exxon, from Humble Oil to Exxon over many iterations.
Eventually, we will all be owned by Exxon.
Yeah, eventually, one way or another. But in the old days, they had open oil storage pits. Mm-hmm. And that open oil storage pit, literally just a trench in the ground, several football fields wide, several football fields long, where they just left the oil. And, they'd pump it back out into the trucks and they'd go. Well, over time, that seeps into the groundwater. And the well water kind of tastes sulfury. It's gross. We don't use well water at all. And the new location isn't attached to the municipal setup, so we use rainwater.
Nice.
And so it's, I didn't want to use municipal water. I definitely didn't want to use the well water. But the rainwater is crystal clear and delicious. We drink it. I drink it at the distillery as the water that we have. Mm-hmm. And it's UV filtered, reverse osmosis filtered, and reverse osmosis filtered again.
So how do you guys collect it?
4 10,000-gallon tanks.
Wow. And so do you use like screens? Do you use in other words, how do you get when it rains? Where does the
Comes
water
off the
go?
roof of the building through
Sweet.
several screen filters and into the tanks.
Awesome.
And then the tanks goes from the tanks to the UV filter, reverse osmosis again, and then into the
And
whiskey.
you have drinking water and whiskey water.
Right. Want to talk a little bit more about this bourbon when we come back. We'll also do a little beer tasting coming up, and we haven't got to everything. We do have some cigars to tell you about that are about to hit the market or may have just hit the market. It's our segment called Cigars to Watch For, and we'll do that coming up. Smoking and Toasting. Welcome back at Smoking and Toasting. Our program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We're trying to find spirit right now, and we were just talking a little bit during the break with Joe Breda from Old Humble Distilling, and they have kind of rebooted their bourbon. And the last one, I do remember liking it, but wow, this is a step in a really good direction, Joe. And
Thank you.
And it's there's something about how were you describing it a moment ago, Ian?
So the things that came into my mind like right off the bat were there's a silky quality and a buttery quality to it, and then there's kind of a chocolatey but silky chocolate kind of French moussey kind of thing happening to it, and then on top of beyond that there's a cinnamon that just rolls across the whole top of this. So this is like imagine a chocolate mousse with cinnamon on top and just
Right.
And the butteriness is so good, and the aftertaste on this is so pleasant. Like
Right.
I could just linger on the aftertaste for a while.
I don't
And almost no heat whatsoever.
I don't want to pigeonhole it as this, but for those who are out to dinner and they say, "Oh, I think I'll drink my dessert," this would be a wonderful wrap up the evening after a really good meal, because it's got just that inherent sort of delicious sweetness to it, and it's got really it would be a fine close off the evening instead of having a port or something like that. This would be a wonderful way to drink your dessert if you choose to do that.
I personally believe any way of
Yeah.
finishing the evening is better than a port, but
Yeah,
that's my personal preference.
So you mentioned that you guys have these big things that you collect the rainwater in. These big, what did you call them? Big
Rain tanks.
Rain
Yeah,
tanks,
40,000
big
gallon tanks, or 4 10,000-gallon tanks. Yeah.
is the water, the rainwater? Would you say that's the reason why this is so outstanding? Is
that's a big part of it. This is a 90 proof whiskey, so it's 45% ABV, which means more than half of it is water, and that water makes a difference. The last thing that we do is take it from 120 proof when we bring it out of the barrel and bring it 125, 115 to 130 proof, somewhere in that neighborhood. When we pull it out of the barrel, we add water to it to bring it down to 90 proof. So the last thing that goes into this is the water.
When do we get a barrel proof?
Eventually, maybe.
You can taste, though.
It's not high on my list of things to do.
Noted.
But maybe one day eventually.
You can taste the water, though. And what I mean by that is the minerality of the water. It's one of the things that is brilliantly noticeable in this. As you're sifting through the butteriness and the cinnamon, the other notes that you mentioned, there's a real wonderful minerality that just makes you feel like you're drinking the cleanest, coolest water.
There's like a note, in the retrohale too. There's like a little note of like orange zest too that just barely kisses. Yeah,
it's got a lot of complexity to it, but it's still very approachable. It's not a. That's why I was saying it'd be a good for drinking your dessert, because it's very approachable. You can just kind of sip and enjoy. You don't have to prepare yourself for each sip.
I've always said that if you have to if you have to work your way to the bottom of the glass, you're doing it wrong. Get a different whiskey, get a different drink, do something else,
do something different.
Because this is a recreational drug. You should be able to recreate and not work.
How does this open up with water?
Pretty well. I like it on the.
Does it change the flavor a lot, or does it get
not a tremendous amount?
Okay.
I prefer it with a couple of cubes of ice or one big cube, because that cools it down, adds a little bit of water, opens it up a little bit. It makes it a little bit sweeter, a little bit easier to drink.
Oh, nice.
But
and it's already
it's really easy to drink to begin with, but it's the difference between a 10-minute drink and a 5-minute drink.
Oh,
Ian, real quick, because we got to bump to break here. You just poured us a little bit of this beer from
this bright golden ale is bursting with golden promise malt and mosaic hops. That wonderful combination blossomed into a beer. Perfect for all your spring-related activities, is what it says on it.
We'll talk about this a little more when we come back, because this is I felt like I'm drinking a green apple here. This is really awesome.
Very delightful.
We will be right back. It is Smoking and Toasting. We're all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We'll be right back. Welcome back into Smoking and Toasting. Our program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. As Ian pulls the price tag off of our next beer, that's just, I've told you, my wife does this thing where when she goes to H-E-B to shop for the week's groceries, she fills one of those onesie six-packs from the beer department, and she loves trying to bring back something that I've never had before.
Something you've never seen, right?
Yeah, and then she gets all excited if the whole six-pack is stuff I've never tried before. So,
do you smile and humor and say, "Yeah, I haven't had any of these yet, honey"?
There's no.
This is great. Thank you.
But I'm gonna smile regardless, because she's bringing me beer. So, yeah.
The more I sip this whiskey, the more things I keep pulling out of it. And there's almost
100%.
There's almost a sherbet kind of thing going on in there too. It's so interesting.
I don't know
so
if
many
I got
things
that.
happening.
I may have to have a little more.
Yeah,
to
we
try that.
might have to do some
try
more
that
research.
out.
I noticed you haven't said anything about the flavors. You're like,
I don't. No. Normally I don't, and I do that on purpose, because when I see tasting notes or something, they're very subjective.
Right.
They're very
As we
subjective
talked
and
about
very
with cigars.
influential.
Absolutely. And
As we
everyone's going
talked
to
about
taste
with
different
cigars.
things.
I always make the joke that if I tell you it tastes like peaches, you're going to find peaches.
Right.
You're going to seek it out and try to find it.
You might even move into the country and eat you a lot of peaches.
Maybe
That's
so.
true. That's
so
true.
I try, when people ask me what it tastes like, I pour them a drink and give it to them and ask them what it tastes like, because it's more interesting to me to find out what they taste than it is for me to tell them what I taste.
Well,
because I could taste something entirely different. My palate is not as sophisticated.
Just a tasty note that I'm going to throw out there. Apparently, your whiskey goes pretty well with Golden Promise malt and Mosaic hops, because this Mr. Boombastic, along with your whiskey, is pretty darn good together.
Because you see, I'll tell people it tastes like sitting around a campfire and telling lies to each other.
Yeah.
It tastes like a camp out in Burnett, Texas. That's because that was the last time one of the first times I had it was I made a bottle and we went camping. It tastes like that. It tastes like Pikes Peak. Because I had a flask on Pikes Peak and I had some Boomtown at the top of the world.
See, this is what this is what it's all about. The whole reason we do this show is because we want to encourage people. If you're going to have something to drink, if you're going to have a cigar, if you're going to have a craft beer or a bourbon or tequila, whatever it is, experience it. Don't just drink it. Experience it.
It can be your own personal small event, but make it an event.
It tastes good meat. It tastes good on the rocks. It tastes good in a cocktail, but it tastes better with friends.
One of my favorite
Always
things to
tastes better
do
with friends.
is to smoke a special occasion cigar for no special occasion at all.
Yeah.
It's Tuesday. That's
it's
a great special
Tuesday.
occasion.
I'm going for it. Yeah. And by the way, just as an aside, to the three of you out there that got my music reference a few minutes ago, you are my people. And I love you.
The Who?
Yeah.
Going to the the going to the country and eat a lot of peaches.
The country and eat a lot
That
of
music
peaches.
reference.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah. Because if I'd done the Who, a whole bunch of people would have got it. But when you do what were they?
Not
the
that
presidents.
Who.
The presidents of the United States of America.
Is that who it
Yeah,
was?
that's who
I
it
can't
was. Yeah,
remember.
yeah. You're not gonna be ringing that many memory bells
Man,
for
I was
people.
around in the 90s, and I remember you couldn't get away from that song for a while.
Well, yeah, I know. And I think there was just something about it that it was kind of like the Chumbawamba song. You know, you're like, oh my
gosh, that was
God,
so terrible.
get out of my head. So anyway, but that's a really good beer. Really good beer.
And
it's crisp and delicious, and it does marry nicely with this bourbon. Now, Joe, is this out now? If I buy a bottle at the store,
Total Wines across the city of Houston. The next shipment is going to go to Total Wines across the rest of the state.
Okay.
Specs is going to be picking it up. Specs has us approved. We just need to get enough in the hands of our distributor to get them into
They
Spec
can get them
stores.
at all the Spec stores. Right?
And they're showing up in finer apothecary shops near you. If you're
What does apothecary mean?
a liquor store.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, they're a medicine store, but it's a liquor store.
I always thought it had something to do with birds for some reason. Like,
That'd be an apiary store.
okay, that's why I was getting it confused. Yeah.
Not to be confused with an ape store.
No,
which sells
apothecary
monkeys and apes.
originally was like mixing chemicals and
it's a
making
chemist,
compounds and
a compound chemist. A prescription, whatever. But you get your local medicine.
think tinctures and beakers and snake oil and stuff.
and whiskey
my.
and,
And whiskey.
whiskey and
Right.
bitters.
Yeah. All right. So.
Oh, I forgot bitters. Yes,
Because
that
bitters
was
were
the
the first
medicine.
tasters. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
Get
right.
your celery
And
bitters and
Tincture, right?
And now we use it for other purposes.
now we're gonna walk down that hill.
Yeah, we're going to walk down that hill to Hopville.
Imperial India Pale Ale with Azaka, Cashmere, and Zythos hops.
Okay. Ooh, it's cloudy.
It says,
It
pump
is.
your brakes and drive slow.
Yeah. Walk down that hill. NOLA is, there are a couple of
Smells
breweries in Louisiana that I'm
Oh, it does
absolutely
smell
crazy
good.
about.
Yeah.
Parish
Parish
is
is
one.
so good.
And NOLA is
NOLA's
another.
good.
And NOLA actually has a Houston, right here in our backyard, they have a Houston brewery.
You know, I heard that. I haven't been there yet.
I haven't either, but I know they are New Orleans and
That's-
Houston is their two locations.
We
So
need to make a destination.
That's
of hitting all the-
delightful. It's got a nice little citrusy.
It's Imperial though. I mean, it'll knock at you here in a moment.
Yeah, it's got a lot of high crispy flavor to it.
Ian, is this
Cruz.
two? Is this two?
You have been bringing IPAs that are fantastic on this show.
And I used to say I don't like IPAs, but that's an IPA that I can drink.
Now, let me go ahead and point out that your standard IPA is something I generally won't reach for. When I see Imperial or Double, a lot of times I'll try that because the malt's going to be more forward, things like that. But this is really, really good.
Well, NOLA
that's it.
doesn't
It's the
disappoint.
malt.
I'm telling you, this brewery is on it. They are on it.
It's got this lump in the back of it that you can chew on.
it's got this
really good.
It's
It's got a
that-
mouthfeel that's almost like
You know,
an
it's
orange
interesting.
juice.
Yes, orange kind of finish on it. I'm curious to see what it's going to do with this whiskey.
And again, that's why I don't give tasting notes, because I talked about this lump in the back of it that you chew on. It doesn't make any sense to anybody unless you're drinking it and you're like, oh yeah, I see what you're talking about.
and it also goes. Is there anything your whiskey doesn't go well with?
Nope.
Because it goes well with this whiskey, and
Nope.
that's a little tougher to pair.
It goes really good with a bar fight. It goes really good with Netflix. It goes really good with everything. I mean,
You'll have to come up with a paraphrase of that old Homer Simpson line, one of my favorite lines ever from The Simpsons, when he looks at his can of beer and he says, or his bottle of beer, he goes, "Beer. Is there anything it can't do?" That's kind of like your bourbon here.
Now, I don't know if I'm just happy to be drinking beer, but this is pretty dang good beer. Right?
Well, again, we really wanted to step up and make sure we were observing Imperial February in the correct manner. And even when we're a little past February, we can still continue to observe, just like those of you who, maybe you're still in a Christmassy mood once it's January.
To be fair, today is still February.
Well, actually, it's not when people hear this.
Yeah, when this comes out, it won't be, but today is still February.
When we're drinking it, it is still February. That's fair enough.
And as far as they know, anytime a show comes out, it's still February when you recorded it. You could have recorded all of these
Absolutely.
on the 28th.
We're going to do the whole year in February and just release them bit by bit.
Just knock out 52 shows tomorrow and you're good.
Absolutely. Now, I will tell you, though, that Imperial February was a reaction to Dry January.
Yes.
Because people went through Dry January, and I understand some people
Were
may
you
have
aware
needed
of
to
Dry
do that.
January?
No.
I had no idea that this even existed.
I don't
It
understand
became more
this.
of a thing this year for reasons I don't fully understand. Because
Did people drink more in December? Is that
that's
part of it.
like this particular December? Did they drink that much more?
No.
I don't know if it's this particular, but that is the theory: is that in December people drink more.
I quit paying attention to all that when I heard November. And I was like, nope, we're out. No more. I don't want to hear any more about this crap. No more.
I don't even know what that is.
I'm sure you can figure it out.
Yeah. No. Let's stop swearing off the stuff. Let's just moderation, people.
All things in moderation, even moderation.
And in February, we've done Imperial ales in moderation. That's how we've done them.
Yeah, even when I do my
we moderated more of them than usual. But,
moderate the heck.
And
out
even
of
when I talk about this on my happy hour show that I do on YouTube, I talk about because we drink a lot.
What
on
is
all
your
of our
happy
shows.
hour show on YouTube? How do you find that?
Well, we go live. We have a YouTube channel. We're pushing 17,
Old
Humble Distilling Company on YouTube. We're marching towards 2,000 subscribers. We should hit it sometime in March when we hit 2,000 subscribers.
Well, hey, man.
We will give away a bottle of whiskey, by the way. So join us.
After this show comes out, you should have at least 2010.
There you go. 2010. Sweet. But we're like 1780 right now, somewhere in that neighborhood. But we do a weekly live happy hour show and we talk about various topics, whatever, and pour cocktails and a drink.
What time do you go live?
We go live at 9 o'clock on Wednesday nights.
Okay.
And we'll probably fire them back up in March.
So they're on hiatus at the moment.
Yeah, I took February off because I'm tired.
Because it's Imperial February.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. But I talk about
it's no blog February.
The copious consumption of alcohol, because we're a liquor company. Obviously, we want you to drink. We want you to drink, but we want you to drink responsibly because we want you to buy another bottle and another bottle and another bottle.
Right.
And a lot of times when I talk to people and I'm out doing tastings, they're like, "I had a bad experience." And they had a bad experience because they drink too much of that one liquor.
First off, okay.
You had it. You know which one I'm talking about because you had it too.
Let's pause for a minute. First off, don't do shots.
Yeah. No, there's no
shots.
point in it.
You know what sucks? Shots.
Yeah.
I don't care what you're drinking.
Absolutely.
When you do a shot of it, it sucks.
Anything that you need to drink that fast probably wasn't that tasty.
Right?
The difference is this. It
Exactly.
doesn't matter how good your whiskey is. If you take a shot of it, it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
It's a
Agreed.
bad way to drink
Agreed.
it. It makes it taste bad.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, if you are going to do shots, don't do good whiskey. Drink Jim Beam or something like that.
Right. Drink the stuff you don't have to taste.
Drink something
I
that sucks
remember
anyway.
when my life changed because I tasted tequila that was good enough to sip instead of
there
to
you go.
just throw
There
it
are
back.
people that aren't aware of that.
Oh, I know. In fact, almost anytime somebody tells you, "Yeah, no, I don't drink tequila. I had a bad experience," it wasn't sipping some
'Cause
fine
Jose
tequila.
Cuervo is not your
pounding stuff
friend.
down.
That's right.
And they woke up with empty bottles.
Jose
Yeah.
Cuervo is not a friend of mine.
And another thing that most people don't realize is that when you're drunk, you're not fun. You're not interesting.
No,
It's
no.
really annoying to everybody else around you who isn't drunk. So it's like, moderation is good. 1 hour.
Yeah,
take
right.
your time. Relax.
And
enjoy the
it.
company.
We keep talking about it. It's the experience. Speaking of, have you gone back, and I don't know if I would have predicted this, have you gone back to the whiskey after drinking this Imperial IPA?
Oh, that's what I said earlier. Is there anything that this doesn't go with? Because
Right.
it goes great.
Okay, so caramel? Anyone? Like, I got caramel when I went back to the bourbon.
I didn't get that, but I get a lot of orange.
I'll take
That
it.
makes sense, yeah.
Sure.
That makes sense. Maybe I'd better try that again. Maybe I'm not getting. Maybe I'm not getting the right thing, and you need to hit me again, there, Mr. Bartender.
Apparently, NOLA Walk Down That Hill has quite the evaporative properties.
Really now.
Because just evaporate
Either
out
that,
of
or
your
there's
cup.
something wrong with my
There's
cup.
a hole in the cup.
Okay, now I'm going back.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It also brings out some of the chocolate, almost like a candied.
Dude, I'm telling you, caramel.
Almost like a candied orange to me.
Well, maybe.
I think
Maybe
we're
I'm
just
getting
tasting
like
different things.
The
maybe
citrusy
I'm
does
getting
come
like
out.
a chocolate orange. Like, you remember when your grandmother used to make those little orange peel things dipped in chocolate?
Yep.
A little bit of that, maybe. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Wow. All right, let me tell you about some cigars that are coming out that you might want to watch for. It's one of the things we like to do on the show because, when you walk into the humidor, your favorite tobacconist, sometimes it's a little overwhelming. You just look around and you go, what am I going to do? What's new? Or you wind up maybe just going for the same thing that you already have tried when you'd like to try something new. So here we go. Brand owner and musician Rafael Nadal has added another movement to his symphonic suite of aging room cigars.
Nicely done.
That wasn't me, though. I copied it out of Cigar Aficionado, but still, it was nicely done. Anyway, it's being introduced late this month at the Tobacco Plus Expo trade show, which is called, it is called, the Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua Sonata. And the All Nicaraguan Cigar is a line extension of the Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua, which everything
Fantastic.
I've had from that
man.
line, oh my
Everything's
God,
so good.
has been really, really good. So basically, they name these by drawing on the influences of different composers like Mozart and Schubert and Beethoven. Nadal is a pianist and violinist himself, very much into classical music, and wanted to create what he believed would be the cigar equivalent of a sonata. So let me ask you this, Ian. If you're wanting to create the cigar equivalent of a sonata, and you're looking around at someone to help you do that, someone to help you blend that, who do you think he might have looked to, just out of curiosity?
Oh, are you going to say, is it AJ?
It's AJ Fernandez.
That guy's on fire, man. He's ridiculous.
Well, he also did the Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua, and all the tobacco in Sonata was grown on his farms, AJ's farms. But Nadal says Sonata's a bit lighter in body on account of the different seed varietals and a longer fermentation process. Anyway, it's made at AJ's factory, and it is going to be available shortly. All of the preview stuff is done at the TPE trade show, and that was actually just happened. So cigars should ship to retailers, they say, around the middle of March.
Listen, I'm sorry. Go
So
ahead.
when I think of a cigar that tastes like a Sonata, like in my head, my imagination immediately fires off. I think of like cherry and apple with like this earthy undertone to it, kind of a grassy, earthy like bass line, and then the violins and whatnot. Just they kind of come together and they merge into this other flavor of something else. I want to try this cigar. I don't know if it's going to taste like what I imagine it'll taste like, but I definitely want to try this cigar because I'm hearing one thing in my head, and I'm like imagining this other whole host of flavors in my mouth, and I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
And
want
you know
some.
what? When you smoke it, you'll pick up on whatever your taste buds and your brain are telling you. It's kind of like, how some songs are actually ruined by the music video? Because what you had in your brain was way cooler than what they put in the video.
Sure.
So sometimes you have to kind of do that with this. It isn't necessarily about go read every review. It's about smoke it for yourself, drink it for yourself, see what comes to you. It's always an experience and a journey, and that's what this is all about. We keep saying that over and over. If you're looking for a green cigar to pair with your green beer this St. Patrick's Day, Alec Bradley Cigar Company, we mentioned them earlier in the show. They are starting the celebration a little early, and this week they are releasing the Black Market Filthy Hooligan and the Filthy Hooligan Shamrock. These are both barber pole cigars with candela in them for St. Patrick's Day.
Right. So two things. One, a green cigar can be really, really good.
Yes.
La Polina makes a great candela.
A lot of people, I think, are scared of them. But they used to be one of the most popular.
They were literally the most popular one
kind of cigars
at the beginning of the 20th century. But La Polina makes a great candela. There's a few other companies that make fantastic candelas. But that Filthy Hooligan is absolutely outstanding.
Yeah.
However, if your beer is green, do not drink it. Just go somewhere else.
I totally agree with that.
If you find yourself drinking green beer, you have made some bad choices that evening.
Absolutely.
Go make one more bad choice, get your Jack in the Box tacos, and just call it a night.
So
chances are they added blue food coloring to it.
So I'll tell you a quick little story. The building that I live in, they do these happy hour things every so often, where you go down to the party room and they've got one theme or another. They had one recently, and my wife and I went down, and we didn't stay long. In particular, they had beers, and the best beer. Usually, they have some really good beers in there. Best beer I could find was a Miller Lite. So I was like, well, I'm not going to drink nothing. But I picked up the beer, and then my wife says, I don't think we need to stay. We can go back upstairs. So we went back upstairs. I put the Miller Lite in my beer fridge rather than throwing it away. My wife's like, why are you doing that? And I said, the night will come when I don't have anything else cold. That night was last night, and I drank a Miller Lite again for the first time in a long time. And my opinion remains unchanged. But anyway, it was just interesting. I had a couple of other beers that I drank first that were in the fridge, and then I went to that, and I just remember thinking, I should have done this first.
When I find the macro brews, I use those for grilling.
If the canoes are rocking, ask me about my light beer.
We'll be right back at Smoking and Toasting. Drinking News is on the way. Welcome back, my friends. Yes, you. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. Our program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars.
I love those things.
Fine spirits today are really quite fine indeed. Boomtown Bourbon has undergone a bit of a facelift, and I can tell you that the resulting product is quite good.
I think that's the first time we actually said the name of the bourbon.
Is it really?
Old Humble's Boomtown, the legendary Boomtown Bourbon from the Old Humble. Because we referred to it as our bourbon again and again, but I don't think I've actually said the title. It's legendary Boomtown Bourbon from the Old Humble Distilling Company.
Boomtown Bourbon, and it is worth looking for. If you're in the greater Houston area, you said that it's available at Total Wine
Total Wines all across the city and Austin. And 2 stores in Austin.
And will soon be available at Specs.
Specs in Houston and across the state, and Total Wines in the rest of the state as well.
Awesome. And if
Super
you are
I love
visiting
that in this area, we can be nostalgic about oil fields. And there's a great picture on here of the old Humble oil field.
In 1919. Yep.
16 is what it says on here.
It was an old postcard. That's what Humble used to look like. It was an old postcard that was sent out. I found it in the National Archives or something like that.
And you mentioned earlier in one of the breaks, you guys also have a new label coming out.
We do. Oh, this is super duper exciting. So I did an interview with Channel 13, Local Eats. I think was the website. It's their like local spotlight of the cool stuff. And I just kind of had this throwaway line. It was it was 2021, right after the freeze, the 72-hour blackout, the freeze, everything shut down. We were Hoth for 3 days. And it was kind of a throwaway line. It's like, I collect our rainwater, and we collected up a few hundred gallons of the snow melt from the blackout. So I might do a special label with the blackout. And like when the story came out, is local distiller uses freeze for special edition. And I'm like, well, crap. Now I guess I have to do it. 2 years later, this spring, that label is finally coming out. I just approved the art on the special edition 72-hour blackout label of our Boomtown Bourbon. It'll be coming out this spring in May.
That is so cool.
I think it'll be coming out in May. We're working on the timing. I'm not 100%. It'll only be about 250 bottles.
I was going to say, how many bottles will be limited, right?
A super limited edition of the label. And should be coming out this spring, late spring, early summer. And I could not be more excited. The label looks absolutely beautiful. It is the whiskey that didn't have to happen because we didn't have to have this water. We didn't have to have a 72-hour blackout, but we have it.
Yeah.
So I have the whiskey, and we're going to drink it, and it's going to be great.
And, of course, the governor has done so much to ensure that will never happen again.
Yeah, we may have another one in a couple
of years. You're likely to have another one very soon. So there you go. He promised.
We'll see.
Remember, he promised.
We'll see.
I hope that sigh of disgust came across.
I hope it did, yes.
But
I think we read you.
But the impact of it, I mean, in the area, we had a lot of people who lost water. We opened up our spigots for people who needed water. We had a few people come pick up 5 gallons. It wasn't a very long-term period in the Humble area, the Tastic area where we're at. But it was a thing to go through, and we collected up the water, and we'll use some of that water. It was this thing. I went outside. I was checking on our pipes to make sure everything was where it would belong and not leaking out of places. And I heard it running off. We had overfilled our containers, and I heard it running off into the reservoir behind the distillery. I'm like, wait a minute, I should probably collect this stuff up. So
yeah.
that's one of the things you can do when you collect rainwater.
That's
nice.
Very, very cool.
And we mentioned earlier too. I love these bottles. These kind of they're very solid, very kind of blocky,
old school bottles.
Wooden bottles. And I actually have one at the house that I got one of the last times you were on a show, and I use it as a decanter because it's just such a good, solid, cool bottle.
It's also a theft prevention device. It's got some heft to it.
Yes. I like it. Speaking of things that have some heft to it, or not, it's time for the most popular segment of this program. It's a little thing we like to call Drinking News.
Drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. Drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. A Florida man with one arm said he had a gator for a pet. When asked about his absent arm, he said, I
had to take my gator to the vet.
Drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news.
Old Humble. Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.
So here on Drinking News, as you know, we bring you stories that sometimes, and quite often actually, are, but not always, are about drinking, but that are every time, always best enjoyed when you've been drinking. And we've been drinking some mighty fine bourbon today, so this works for me.
Mighty fine whiskey from mighty fine people.
As we scour the world for people to talk to about beer and fine spirits. Nicely timed opening there, Ian. Drinking News gets a surprising amount of response. Seriously, as far as I'm concerned, any response is surprising. But we get a surprising amount of response. But one thing a number of you have said to us in response to some of the crazy things that people do when they've had too much is the phrase, "We've all been there." Which, of course, we haven't.
Yeah.
I've never tried to use a taco as my legal ID. I've never chased people with a machete, but we do get the point.
I've never stolen a crocodile.
Exactly.
Well, I've
from
never
a
used
mini golf course.
I've never used a taco as an ID.
Yeah, exactly. So we know where you're going. But look,
I mean,
we do get the point of what you're trying to say. Perhaps a better way to say it is a better cliched phrase is more correct. There, but for the grace of God go I, right? You've heard that phrase. So, in fact, I'm pretty sure that no one listening has ever gotten a little tipsy and suddenly, seriously, decided to declare themselves to be a king or the president or even a mayor. So leave it to Kyle Schonkweiler. You cannot make this stuff up, by the way.
No,
Kyle Schonkweiler, a Florida man, was one of the people coming out of a bar called the Dixie Roadhouse in Cape Coral at closing time. Unlike the other departing customers who chatted in the parking lot or headed for their rides, Kyle took another route. He decided instead to strip down to his boxers and then start running around and grabbing people. When one man resisted his advances, Kyle allegedly spit in his face.
Oh.
But those things are common in drunken Florida fights. What made Kyle Schonkweiler unique is that he then proceeded to gather a group of people around and declared himself to be the mayor of all of them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was handing out
mayor because I say so.
He was handing out assignments and offering his subjects questionable advice when the police arrived. Officers attempted to engage the nearly naked Florida man and had to go and retrieve him after he lost interest in their questions, became enamored with a group of women in the parking lot, assailed them with the worst pickup line since, "Hey, good looking, we'll be back to pick you up later." Which you may remember from the Mr. Microphone commercials. Do you remember those?
I'm lost.
Oh, you don't remember that? So Mr. Microphone was this product, I think it was back in the 70s or early 80s, this product that you could buy on TV.
Wait a minute, slow down.
Yeah.
It was a microphone that had like a speaker built into it.
No, it actually, I think it either had a speaker built into it or it would play through the radio in your car.
Oh, okay. I do remember that. Yes.
I remember the product. I don't remember the commercial.
So
And
you
in the
could
commercial-
talk into it, and it would have really crappy sound going into your AM radio channel or something like that.
And in the commercial, these three guys in a convertible drive by this kind of hot-looking woman who's walking down the street, And they actually say, I'm not making this up, hey, good looking, we'll be back to pick you up later.
Because catcalls are awesome.
Yeah. And you want to do them through your tinny sounding AM radio speakers in your car.
Because in the 70s, like
as soon as I drop off these pizzas.
Yeah.
You know, most vehicles had like a speaker in the
That's good.
most cars had like a speaker in the center of the console. Remember that?
Right?
And it would
I
come
remember my
outside kind of
grandfather's old.
I could look on. What am I going to begin where?
Yeah, I remember my grandfather's old truck had the one speaker in the middle, and it was that kind of was that plasticky stuff that was always split and broken.
Yeah. What do they call that? It was some kind of awful dashboard substance thing.
Yeah. Kids today don't understand what it was like back then. We have 5-point sound in all of our cars now, and it's like back then you had like a boombox. That was it.
Yeah,
back before they invented things like safety and good sound.
Right, that's right. And I will tell you, if you leave your car's boombox in the back window, somebody will break in and steal it.
Bring back back lawn darts, man.
Yeah, come on.
Jarts, is that what they're calling?
Yeah. Police managed to drag our Florida man over to a bench and then learned that he was from Polk County, which apparently raised some questions over jurisdiction. Before they could solve the issue, Mr.
Mayor
Schonkweiler, thank you, fell over from a seated position and face planted on the concrete and asphalt in front of him. Now medical attention was required, so police gathered him up to put him in the ambulance once the paramedics arrived. A group had gathered around the spectacle, and as cops dragged him away to the ambulance, Schonkweiler turned to address his loyal flock and gave them a going-away sermon. He told them, "Watch out! Don't get beat up," before offering perhaps his best advice of the night. Don't let your D get caught on the pony. D being Johnson or
on the
manhood.
pony?
On the pony.
Don't let your get caught on the pony. He then began to issue physical threats and got into fights with the police and the paramedics. Police finally arrested our Florida
that's what
man.
you do, right? When you're in Florida.
Yeah. Right. It's early.
One does.
I'll just go ahead and, get into a fight with the cops and the paramedics who are trying to treat me. Police finally arrested him for disorderly conduct, our perp, Kyle Schonkweiler. And for the record, the Dixie Roadhouse released a statement that said that Kyle was never in their establishment.
Oh. He was just drinking in the parking lot.
Just come to hang out. Yeah. I don't even go in the place. I just hang out in the parking lot.
I can't believe they wouldn't claim the mayor.
Yeah, apparently he was...
Look, they don't have a drink named after the mayor?
Yeah, they should.
The Schonkweiler.
Yeah. I'm the mayor, and I approve this message.
It's definitely got pickle juice in it.
Reporting live from the Dixie Roadhouse, where I'd just like to take a moment to say, I've done a lot of things, but I have never gotten my penis caught on the pony. Not once. My name's Cruz, and that is your...
Drinking news. That's our time for drinking news.
Cheers, y'all. I realized I did the drinking news toast, and then I sat it down and I didn't drink. I was like, "What is wrong? What is wrong with me?"
Yeah.
So
distinct foul.
Here's to you, my good friends.
Cheers.
This is a very drinkable bourbon, by the way.
Thank you.
I mean, it really is. It's like I feel like it does get even more palatable, more easy to drink as you have a little more. It's one of those that has a little Doritos effect going on.
I got you.
Yeah.
Can't have just one. Mm-hmm. So Ruffles too, wasn't it? Pringles.
Well,
you can't eat just one?
Well, I called it Doritos because
Lay's was the can't eat just
can't
one.
Eat just one, yeah.
Right,
I did that challenge on my YouTube channel. But like the you can't have just one. I had a plate of Lay's and I ate just one. I did it. But it is weird because you sit there and you have the plate in front of you and you're just talking and you like just randomly reach out and like
Well, the story is, I don't know if this is true or just urban legend,
but the
story is that Doritos specifically are chemically engineered to induce whatever it is that makes you feel like I really want another one.
That would not surprise me.
Above and beyond just like, hey, that was good, I'll have another. There's something in it that tells you it's not complete until you have another. And I have no idea how this stuff works. But that's the story. That's the legend. And I don't know if it's true. But what I do know is we've got some French toast bastard already poured.
What is this?
And Ian,
dark and delicious.
Okay?
And
just
tell me this doesn't smell like
baby.
breakfast.
It smells like boozy breakfast. Is what it smells like.
Yeah, it has that. It has that buttery, cinnamony kind of
like this is what
what are those
waffles with
swirly
syrup.
things with the cinnamon?
This is the one.
The swirly things with the sugar on top.
The cinnamon bun?
Oh,
yeah, Cinnabons.
Yeah,
that's
Cinnabon.
it.
Yeah,
That's not right.
Yeah, this is
That's not Cinnabon. That's like a brand. But,
yeah, but I know what you're
cinnamon
talking
yeah,
about.
cinnamon roll. That's
Cinnamon
what I think.
roll.
The roll with cinnamon on it. It's cinnamon roll. Duh.
It
Jesus,
feels
the whiskey
to me.
guy, you're dumb.
Words is
Yes,
hard.
I am. Thank
Words
you.
are hard.
I do whiskey. I don't do English. Sorry.
Let me tell you, this beer may be the inspiration for the phrase "beer. It's
Ooh.
not just for breakfast anymore." This is really
This beer is
amazing.
ridiculous. This beer
That's gotta.
tastes oddly a little more barley wine-ish to me.
Yeah.
It does.
It does. It tastes a little more barley wine, and it's boozy.
But you're talking serious, like
I
cinnamon
will
roll
also
here.
tell you, it is viscous.
yeah. It hits you under the tongue.
And if you were to ever like drip some of this between two pieces of wood, they will never come apart.
That is something.
You could hang pictures with this,
Yeah, you could drink this with a fork.
and I think I might. I think I may. I think I
It's
might
pretty fantastic, though. Like,
drink
it's-
this with a fork tonight.
That's good stuff.
I could see, there's a lot of people who would expect a more beer tasting beer, and this is literally more like waffles and syrup tasting beer.
Yeah, it really is French toast. I mean, it really, really is. So the Old Bastard series.
Vanilla, cinnamon, maple, bourbon barrel aged Scotch ale.
Bourbon barrel aged.
First off, there's Scotch ale. Like, they're regular. It's just called Dirty Bastard, right? Mm-hmm. Is an absolute staple in my refrigerator. Like, that
this whole
is so good.
series that they do is great.
But when they barrel age it, it's even more gooder. Because words is hard.
So let me ask you this, Joe. Would you guys are your barrels in demand at all? Once you've done
We've sold all 10 of our barrels that we used in our first batch.
Okay, I'm not surprised.
They did not make it through. We released the batch on January 27th and 28th, that weekend. The barrels were gone by February 15th.
And did they go to beers? They go to other spirit companies?
Half of them went to home brewers. The other half went to a guy who does crafts with the barrels.
Wow.
I was going to say, are you allowed to know where your barrels go, or is it kind of like when you donate an organ, you're not allowed
Well,
to?
I mean, I know who bought them. It was 4 people bought 5 of them, and 1 person bought the other 5. And that was, I know the guy who bought the other 5, and I know what he's doing with them. That sounds awful. But I know what he's doing with them. It's
know what
fine.
you're doing
He's
with
doing
my
the crafts. He's making them into like furniture and wall hangings and things like that. It's really cool.
Okay.
And then the other.
So
the
he's
other,
not going to be the
But
subject of a
this-
future drinking
Yeah,
news
yeah,
story.
yeah. No,
This
no.
beer
You didn't get
is a-
anything stuck in anything. It's fine.
Yeah.
This
gotcha.
beer is a good example of what happens with barrels like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's also a good example of ridiculous. This beer is ridiculous.
This is
really good.
crazy ridiculous. Backwoods
It's-
Bastard gets the full-fledged breakfast treatment.
Yeah.
Our malty and rich bourbon barrel-aged Scotch ale is introduced to the essence of smooth maple, warm cinnamon, and notes of sweet vanilla for an incredibly decadent brunch-inspired sipper. One taste and you'll swear you're digging into your Sunday morning French toast. Breakfast for dinner tonight,
yeah.
anyone?
It's
You
a
know
lot of
how-
sweetness. There's none of the sage, spicy
No,
stuff that
not
you get
at
with the
all.
peppers or sausage
Yeah,
or anything
no,
like
not
that.
at all.
It's all the cinnamon and sweet. Yeah, it's
Have you
really
ever
good.
had a cinnamon roll where when they warm it up, they put butter on the top?
Yeah.
And the butter like kind of melts with that icing. I just get that from the on the finish of this.
You know what?
delightful.
You know what though?
Butter
like this
melded with
beer-
icing.
This beer makes me want to have that link sausage. That just gets a little bit of the syrup on it when you take
And
a
it's
bite.
a little charred on the end.
So
Oh,
good.
yes. Jimmy Dean, here we come. We'll be right back to wrap up the show this week. It's Smoking and Toasting, and we are so thrilled to have you guys on board with us for show number 317. We'll be right back.
I love you like I know you forever. I just need you to make some room. Come on, let me drink for you, baby.
Welcome back at Smoking and Toasting. Our program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars,
love
things that
those
we
things.
enjoy and love and appreciate. And we want to say super huge thanks to Joe Breda from Old Humble Distilling, our guest who brought some magnificent bourbon with him today. And we've been enjoying it for what feels like pretty much the entire show. I like this. We went to the spirit a little earlier in the show than we normally do. And I think that worked.
I think it shows in the bottle.
Yeah, I think it absolutely does. By the way, I want to mention a friend of mine, Dave Franklin, plays in a band called Feo y Loco.
Yeah, I love
which
that
is
band.
Spanish for Feo and Loco.
Yes.
He is. He's a buddy. I run into him from time to time. I go see his band play every once in a while, and he called me the other day. Somehow he has come into this mother load of cigar boxes. Yeah, a huge amount of unopened, sealed boxes of cigars, more than he could ever hope to smoke.
A plethora.
So I will tell you that he wants to sell some of these, and I think he's making good deals, and he'll ship them to you if you want, because they were basically given to him. He's not going to be able to smoke them all, so if he can make $1 or $2, I think he's interested in selling them. So I'm not going to go to the trouble to list prices, but it's big name brands, good cigars, and they have been cared for. They've been, kept in a humidified area, so they should be good. Anyway, if you want to email me, just send your email to st@rfcmedia.com. I will forward you his spreadsheet and how to get in touch with him. He's just a buddy, and I'm just doing this for him because he will probably give me some cigars if I do this. So, and that's always a good motivator for me, No, but he's a good guy, and he'll treat you right. So, email me
I need that spreadsheet.
ST. And I will send it to you. st@rfcmedia.com. And by the way, that's also we just established this a while back. This is email that you can use to email the show about anything. If you want to challenge something that Joe Breda from Old Humble Distilling said while he was here, that's the way to do it. If you have a drinking news story you want to suggest, send it on. If you have a question about spirits or cigars or craft beer or human sexuality, send it to us. We love getting emails.
Also, if you want to correct me on something that I said that's completely wrong, I will actually enjoy that email.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They're going to send you an email that says, actually, I'm much more interesting when I'm drunk.
Yes.
Let's have that debate. I'll give you a bottle and we'll talk.
I'm totally down with it. So, yeah. But you can email us about anything. We are going to be starting a regular segment where we answer or attempt to answer emails here on the show. So send them on in. It's just ST. At RFC Media. That's our parent company.
That's S,
RFC.
as in Squiggly Snake.
S, Squiggly Snake, T, Tomball, and then at rfcmedia.com.
You're so Texas.
Yeah, I know. So we're trying to be less Texas-centric.
So
because of this syndication thing that's coming, right?
He mentioned something earlier about getting together and telling lies, and it reminded me of so I work some days out in Tomball, and then I'll have a rehearsal in Magnolia. So in between there is a bunch of nothing.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a dive bar right on 249. I think it's called the B&H Dive Bar.
It sounds like a dive bar name.
When I walk in, I'm the youngest guy by like 20 years. Right? And I walked in and I ordered a beer and I sat down with a cigar outside, just making some time between then and rehearsal. And this old gentleman comes out and sits next to me the first time I come out there, and he goes, so you from around here? And I was like, no, I grew up out in Liberty and blah, blah, blah. And we were talking back and forth. And he goes, oh, yeah, man, it's different people, but it's the same old lies here. I started laughing.
Joe Breda from Old Humble Distilling, thank you so much. Your bourbon is delicious.
Find us in Total Wines all across the city.
Yep, absolutely. And coming soon to Specs as well.
Yep.
On next week's show, Tim Young and Joel Johnson with Hooten Young Whiskey and Cigars will be joining us for the program. And then the following week, Abby Heim with Pink Boots and Great Heights Distilling, I believe, will be Great Heights Brewing, rather, will be with us. So we're looking forward to that, and we have lots more to come. It's going to be a good year, my friends, for smoking and toasting. And we salute you and say, cheers, y'all.
Cheers, y'all.
Such a sweet little honey. Your smile's the only